All right, y'all, welcome to the show. Welcome, welcome. So we got a lot going on today. Look, before we go any further, I have to say, do yourself a big favor. Sign up for free for Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack, or sign up for the $5 a month so you get the video of every interview, because we're about to have a great one this week. Crystal and I are going to be debating Michael Tracy on the issue of the Trump indictment and criminal charges. And suffice to say, I think the charges are correct, and he thinks they are total BS. So it should be a very fun and substantive debate, so definitely check that out. And I got a lot of stuff going on today too, man. A lot of stuff. So we're going to talk about Dianne Feinstein. We're going to talk about the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals really overreaching and slapping down some student loan debt reduction, which isn't the one that you're probably thinking of now. It's the student loan debt reduction for literal defrauded Americans from scam colleges. I mean, judicial tyranny is the nicest thing you could say about how they're acting. And later on in the show, we'll get to the hosts over at the PBD podcast are quite outraged over the fact that UPS drivers make a decent living. And Sean Hannity attacks the bottom 50% of income earners, the poorest people in the country. And in his conception of things, he flips it like they're the oppressors and the uber wealthy are the victims. You can't make this stuff up if you tried. So anyway, everybody do me a big favor. Click like, but more importantly, click subscribe. We're trying to continue to grow the channel. It's kind of difficult because the algorithm on YouTube isn't that kind to independent political content. Not gonna lie to y'all, desperately trying to stay ahead of my wife's channel on Breaking Points. Desperately want to keep a sub lead there. So hook a brother up with a sub, costs you nothing, helps me out tremendously. Also, click that bell icon so you get a notification every single time a video drops. And all the other fun stuff. Much love to everybody who supports the show on Patreon. That link is below. Much love to everybody who tips on YouTube. There's a thanks button below where you can do that. Couldn't do it without you guys. Very proud of the fact I've never had a conversation with an advertiser, and you guys make that possible. You've never seen me do an ad read, and you never will. I'm not here to be like a weird snake oil salesman. I'm here to give you guys the news, give you guys facts, and then give you my take. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it here. So here we go again, man. Here we go again. Dianne Feinstein. She was just hospitalized after a fall in her San Francisco home. Now, let me pause just to reflect on what this means. If you've ever had anybody who's like super old in your family, you know that like the falling thing happens kind of often the closer they get to the end of their life. It's not a good thing. You know, it's not, it's nothing to make a joke about, right? But this is what happens. The older you get, the more you can't perform basic functions. And then you get into stuff like just falling while doing normal stuff at home. And that's usually the beginning of the end, if not the end of the end. So she ended up falling in her home and she had to be hospitalized. This is in the New York Post. They say Senator Dianne Feinstein was forced to the hospital after tripping and falling Tuesday in her hometown of San Francisco, according to her office. Senator Feinstein briefly went to the hospital yesterday afternoon as a precaution after a minor fall in her home. All of her scans were clear and she returned home. Now, let me pause here to say, I don't buy it. The reason she went to the hospital is because it actually was a serious fall and she did something worthy of going to the hospital. This, like, try to like brush it under the rug thing. And remember, it's a spokesperson who said this. This isn't somebody from the New York Post. They're quoting a Feinstein spokesperson. So they're trying to put, you know, the smiley face on it. Oh, it was just precaution. No, she fell. I'm sure she hurt herself pretty badly. And that's why she went to the hospital. Now, by the way, I should also point out her daughter was just given power of attorney over her. So what that means is she can't handle her own business and pay her own bills and take care of her own stuff. So now her daughter has legal authority over her. At the same time, she's still one of the most powerful people in the country. She's a senator, and she's allowed to continue to be a senator, even though she can't handle her own basic necessities. Feinstein suffered no, quote, serious injuries from the tumble. Her spokesperson stressed the hospital visit was first reported by TMZ. The Senate is currently on recess and set to return September 5th. Feinstein, 90 years old, was hospitalized earlier this year after a bout with shingles and was absent from the Senate for about 3 months before returning in May. She is the oldest sitting lawmaker in either chamber of Congress. During her absence, Feinstein missed dozens of key votes and was blamed by some progressives for slowing the progress of President Biden's controversial picks for federal judgeships through the Senate Judiciary Committee. Just so we're clear, this isn't an opinion. This is a fact. she slowed down the approval of these judges. It's not debatable. She did. Her absence made that happen. Aides later confirmed that Feinstein suffered complications from shingles, including encephalitis, which is brain inflammation, and Ramsay-Hunt syndrome that prolonged her time away from the upper chamber. Much of her absence overlapped with Fetterman's extended time away due to his treatment for clinical depression. Fetterman returned to the Senate in April. At times, Feinstein has had public mental lapses, that's a kind way of putting it, and appeared confused during Senate proceedings, drawing scrutiny from observers. At one point during a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing last month, an aide and one of her colleagues had to prompt her to vote aye on the annual defense spending bill. So in that situation, she started to give a speech, and then her aide was like, hey, no, this isn't speech time, like just say aye. And that it shows so much just how bad everything is. When you have one of the most powerful people in the country doesn't even know how they're going to vote or what they're supposed to do, she starts to give a speech and she's like, yeah, I'll greenlight the whatever it is, $800 billion military budget. Like, that's a big deal. That's a big thing. That's like a super complicated, complex issue with all these moving parts and all these different provisions and variables. And she's like, okay, yeah, whatever, aye. It's just such a sign of how decrepit the empire has become. Feinstein has not decided to vie for re-election, and her term is set to end at the start of 2025. Gee, you don't say. Her departure has triggered a Democratic primary scramble to replace her in what could become one of the most expensive non-presidential elections ever. Top contenders to replace Feinstein include Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Barbara Lee. All right, so look, here's where I'll tell you guys the truth about what's going on here, and this is something mainstream media has basically tried to play hide the ball on. The reason why Feinstein is still in office, and the reason why she hasn't resigned, is because Nancy Pelosi is behind the scenes effectively begging her to stay in office and not resign. Why is that? Because Nancy Pelosi's hand-picked candidate to replace Dianne Feinstein is Adam Schiff. Now, Adam Schiff is one of the most corporate of the corporate Democrats. He was the biggest Russiagator conspiracy theorist out there. I mean, there's a million things to go after Donald Trump for legitimately. This guy picked the one thing that was totally bogus. So she wants Adam Schiff to be the next senator from California. But Gavin Newsom has already said he gets to appoint whoever would replace Feinstein if Feinstein dies in office or steps down. And Gavin Newsom has already come out and said, I'm going to pick a black woman. Now, in this instance, the obvious choice, if you pick a black woman to take Feinstein's position, it would be Barbara Lee. Now, Barbara Lee is way more progressive than Adam Schiff. She's one of the lone votes against, I forgot whether it was the Afghanistan War or the Iraq War. She was heroic during the War on Terror era, standing up against neoconservatism and imperialism. And so it's basically a foregone conclusion that Gavin Newsom would pick somebody more progressive than Adam Schiff. In fact, it probably would be Barbara Lee. And so that's why Pelosi, in a political power play, has begged Feinstein to stay in office despite the fact that she can't do the job. Because if Feinstein makes it to the end of her term, well, then there would be the election for that seat. And in the polls, Adam Schiff is up. And by the way, also in that election, just so everybody's clear here, because you have Katie Porter running and Barbara Lee running, and you have Adam Schiff running, you have more progressive candidates, which will split the progressive vote. And so the centrist corporate Democrat is more likely to win. So this is all very calculated. This is all incredibly manipulative on the part of Pelosi because she wants another corporate stooge as a senator from California. Dianne Feinstein is way more conservative than your average California voter and certainly your average California Democrat. She's one of the more conservative Democrats in the Senate. I mean, of course, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are worse than her, but certainly in the 90s and 2000s, she's a very conservative Democrat. And this is what Pelosi wants. Pelosi wants another Dianne Feinstein. Pelosi wants another corporatist. And so this whole scheme where she's being forced to do the job when she can't is all because Pelosi wants to keep that a corporate seat and not hand it over to Barbara Lee, which would make it a much more progressive seat. And of course, if Barbara Lee is picked by Gavin Newsom to serve out the remainder of the term, she also would then be very likely to win it when it comes up for an election the next time. So it is all incredibly nefarious, man. And Nancy Pelosi is sitting behind the scenes watching Dianne Feinstein be unable to complete a sentence, have no idea where she is, repeat herself 3 or 4 different times. There's stories about how her staffers don't let her walk around the Senate on her own because they're afraid of what she'll say and what she'll do. She confused one black lawmaker for another black lawmaker. She's totally gone. She's totally gone. She probably legit has dementia. She has all these physical health problems. Now she's falling. She in no way, shape, or form is fit. Forget to do the job. She's not fit to do anything, work any job right now. But she's still a senator. Look, this is another one of those instances where you look at it and you say, there should be some sort of provision, like a no confidence vote or something, which could allow people to act on this, would allow people to get her out of there. Because the way this is working right now, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. We have rule by the, elderly is too kind of a word, rule by the near-death people. Like, don't know what's going on, don't know whether they're coming or going, all these physical health problems. And look, it's not just for the country that I think she should step down, but it's also for her own well-being. She should be sipping a mojito right now, laying on a beach, soaking up some sun. You know, she should be watching the reruns of Murder, She Wrote and The Honeymooners. She should be with her, surrounded by her family, not being a literal corporate puppet and stooge on behalf of Nancy Pelosi because she has a corrupt scheme to keep the government more corporatist. So there you have it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.